You're listening to 66.6 FM, Radio TOVH, The Flush.
Well, hey there, everybody. It's me, Joe Thrashinkill, and you're listening to the Toilet of Hell radio show. With me, I've got my number one good and golden buddy. Fuck everyone else. I'm talking, of course, about Jordan. Jordan, how you doing?
Lightning strikes again.
What?
It's a song for the person that we're interviewing on this very show.
Oh, fuck. It's a clue.
It's a breadcrumb for people listening who clicked play without looking at the title of the show or the article that this is posted to.
What kind of a sick freak does that?
I'm trying to make things fun.
All right. Hey, on this show, we got a couple of things for you. I think the biggest one, however, is, as Jordan so expertly alluded to, is we have an interview with a real fucking titan of rock and roll and heavy metal and horror movies. Honestly, somebody I never thought that we would get on the show, but I'm extremely pleased that we did. Jordan, who is it?
We have the God of Thunder himself, Jon Mikl Thor, is joining us on this show, and it's a really fun interview. I'm really glad we were able to get in touch with him and learn about a band that's been around for 50 years and has put out almost 40 albums.
Man, we only had 30 minutes with Thor, unfortunately, because I had about a million questions that would require a ton of depth to get into. I really wanted to ask him questions about how the industry has changed, from his time in the 70s to now, because I believe that he first broke on the Merv Griffin show.
Yeah, we get into this on the show, but talking about how even before the band started, there was a lot of entertainment stuff that he wanted to do, be in movies, things like that. And it kind of fits in with how the band Thor got started and how it was a theatrical show with lots of stuff going on. And then later on in his career, kind of changing sounds and experimenting with stuff, including nu metal, which even I had no idea about.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be giving that album a listen today when I find some free time, because I am intrigued by the idea of nu metal Thor. I guess another question I didn't want to ask him, because I felt like I didn't want to give anybody ideas, was if the Walt Disney Corporation had been trying to threaten him for his name.
Well, I'm sure it's the weird copyright issues of they can probably copyright their image of Thor, but Thor is in the public domain, I guess, considering it was a religion many, many years before Disney existed. So maybe he gets a pass.
I hope so. I hear one word about Disney hassling that nice old man, I will come kick their asses. I will fucking beat Mickey Mouse's ass red.
Yeah, we don't want Jon Mikl Thor BC or something like that.
Absolutely.
To get around it.
And for, you freaks out there, we did get into a fairly long discussion about his work with Seth Putnam, which I thought was actually pretty fascinating. Definitely not at all what I expected. So, man, there really is something for everybody on this episode.
And we do talk about Rock and Roll Nightmare.
I mean, how could we not, right?
You have to. And people that want to listen to the show towards the end, Toilet of Hell may be showing up in some form or fashion in a Jon Mikl Thor movie. Fingers crossed, hopefully soon.
Here's hoping, man. I really can't think of a bigger honor for our stupid ass entertainment sphere.
I think the only thing that would be better is maybe a trauma movie called Toilet of Hell.
Yeah. I just imagine that Lloyd Kaufman would do us dirty on the royalties.
He would, but we'd be immortalized in a trauma movie. It's kind of one of those, do you do it, do you not do it things? And no, I think it would be a good way to remember our stupid website.
I think so too. So rather than having us, bullshit back and forth, how about we play the interview for these nice folks, and then after the interview, you and I can just talk mad shit about whatever's going on in the world.
I think that's a good idea. Let's do it.
Roll that beautiful tape. You are listening to the Toilet Hill Radio Show. It's me, Joe. With me, I've got my good buddy Jordan, and today we have a very special guest joining us. Listeners, you might know him as Mr. Canada, Mr. USA, John Triton from Rock and Roll Nightmare, the legendary rock warrior, and the frontman behind Thor. Coming all the way from Asgard, he is the son of Odin, Jon Mikl Thor. John, how you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on your show.
We are so pleased to have you.
I'm sending you greetings from across the miles. I extend a handshake to you guys virtually out there, and from Vancouver, British Columbia. We got a beautiful day here, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys.
You know, I feel like it was just this October, Jordan, you and I were watching Rock and Roll Nightmare, right?
Yes, one of my favorites that I try to watch at least once a year.
I got to tell you, so it is extremely pleasing to have you to have the lead actor here with us today for our stupid heavy metal podcast. It's metal and horror and everything all combined with a real legend from the genre.
Well, I just love your name, actually. The name of the show, The Toilet of Hell. It's a beautiful name. I love it.
The explanation for that is that we are both very dumb.
It really paints a picture, though. You really get an image of your head of what a toilet of hell would look like.
Yes, absolutely. And, life is like that, right? It's usually a toilet of hell, and you make what you can out of it.
That is extremely true. Just a week ago, you released your 39th album, Alliance. And after 50 years in and out of the music industry, how do you feel this record compares to the rest?
Well, I can say this, that if tomorrow I walked away, hung the hammer up, hung the cape up and the helmet, and said, you know what, I've had enough of show business after 50 years in music, I can say that I think this is the best work I've done, so I can be proud of that. I can walk away and feel good about this album. That
is really awesome. When you were putting this together, how did the pandemic affect that process? What was writing and recording like for you?
Well, we were in the midst of a tour going from February to March, a U.S. tour, and we were promoting an album called Rising. Suddenly, we hit Los Angeles, and everybody's talking about the pandemic. This is like July. Sorry, this is March the 12th. In the 2020, March 12th, right? And then people are more and more fearful, right? And stuff is on CNN. Oh wow, this is horrible. They're showing images of people being very sick. Then we hit Las Vegas around March the 14th, and it's even worse. And all the cab drivers, who drove us around were saying, "Oh man, the whole town is going to close down. What are we going to do?" And there was more stuff on CNN. So, long story short, the tour had to end because of the pandemic, and we were unable to promote Rising any longer as far as touring goes, and all the musicians went home to Denver and Nashville, and I came back to Vancouver. And so I was thinking, how do I proceed further? So I felt, hey, well, let's make another album. Maybe things will open up later. And I reached out to just incredible artists all over the world and friends, and they came forth. We created this union of power, and we made this album Alliance, and I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that really struck me about Alliance is just how many guests that you have on this album and just the caliber and the breadth of skill. And I just want to run down a few names for our listeners just so they can really understand how big of a deal this is. On this album, you have John Gallagher of Raven, Bjorn Speedstrid of Soilwork, Chris Holmes of WASP, Ross the Boss, formerly of Manowar, a good friend of ours, Nina Asagueta of Sound of Thunder, Fang von Rathenstein from Lords of the Trident, Dan Cleary of Stryker, Neil Turbin of Anthrax, Danko Jones, Dennis Post of Warrior Soul, Trevor William Church of Haunt. And I'm just curious, do you just get on the phone with all these people or send them a quick email? How do you manage to get all these people together to work on this album with you?
Yeah, well, many are friends, and I just reached out to them. But I also had the help of coordinating the whole thing with Ted Jedlicki from our band. He's a tremendous coordinator, and he's really good with social media and everything. But he was able to work with me, and we could reach out to everybody. And some are old friends. For example, Uncle Floyd is on the album. I don't know if you know about Uncle Floyd, but he was very famous in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s in the New York area. David Bowie loved his show. John Lennon loved his show. He broke many bands who were up and coming, including the Ramones and Blondie, and the fact that he did a special guest appearance on Rock Around the World on one of the tracks is great. And I want to also say that, Kevin Stewart Swain is tremendous. He produced the album with me. And, I got to say it. So I couldn't do it without a little help from my friends like John Liebel on guitar, Tom Croxton on drums, Rick Fabio on percussion, Matt Hamilton on guitar. These guys are all great.
Yeah, it's really incredible. We watched your latest video the other day, and I was incredibly pleased to see again our friend Nina there, and everybody singing like triumphantly together. I was like, oh, this kicks ass.
Yeah. Did you see the new video? It just came out with Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, damn! I have not seen that.
Yeah, it's from the cut Because We Are Strong. I think it's a very strong video, and Lou Ferrigno and I go back a long way. It's also the official music video for the movie Liberator, right? And Lou Ferrigno and I used to compete against each other, like in Mr. Universe, Mr. Teenage America in the early 70s. And here we are in 2021 in a video together.
That is truly incredible. And your background as a bodybuilder in what a lot of people would consider really the golden era of bodybuilding saw you, Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the titans of the sport, all competing together at once. How does it feel after all this time to be together with some of your compatriots?
It's absolutely wonderful. I've made so many great friends. I'm very fortunate in my life over the years, whether it's actors like Adam West, who I loved as a youth as Batman, and or all the tremendous guests who are on the Alliance album in the music industry, and and of course in bodybuilding like Lou Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all people. Maybe we don't talk every single day, but we're friends, and every once in a while we get together. And as soon as this pandemic is over, where I can cross the border, I'll go down to California and see Lou.
It is truly something special to be able to talk to you, having been a part of that and competed and won, especially in those competitions. I have to ask, in the years ensuing, how have you I guess dealt with the difficulties of such strenuous behavior on your body back when you were a much younger man?
Yeah, I do have, some injuries. But what, like, for example, there's been some Mr. Universe winners who are now crippled, for example, because they were using heavy weights. I used more of a pumping method. Arnold did a lot of pumping, really his joints aren't bad. He's okay. His only problem is the heart, but that's genetic. He's had 3 heart surgeries. That's more of a genetic thing. Like Ronnie Coleman, for example, Mr. Olympia, he did heavy weights, and the joints can only take so much. No matter who you are, we're not Hercules. We're not really demigods. We're not really gods. We're human beings, and the joints can get strained. And if you look at some of the old champions who did the pumping methods, whether it's Steve Reeves or Larry Scott or even Dave Draper, it's more of a, you got the muscle, right? But you're not lifting, such heavy weights. You're doing more supersets, trisets, and you can pump up the body where you can compete in bodybuilding contests. Like I was never trying to be a weight lifter. I had the strength or a power lifter, and I could go in those contests if I wanted to, but I was more of a bodybuilder, so I sculpted my body.
That's a really interesting perspective. I did not realize that. I'd watched Ronnie Coleman's documentary, and I saw that he was in terrible shape, and I didn't realize it was because of using those excessively heavy weights.
Yes, excessively heavy.
Jordan, you brought this one up, that I think that the first track that I ever heard with Thor on it was a pretty left field one. Which one was that?
This question kind of popped up just because there are so many guests on this album that the one I know the most is kind of different from all of these, whereas on this album you have a lot of heavy metal vocalists, power metal vocalists, speed metal, all that kind of fit in with the classic Thor sound. This one comes from Seth Putnam of Anal Cunt, and it was the song Throwing Cars at People on Coke with Thor. How did that collaboration come about?
Well, I was on tour back, I was making my comeback around, I guess it was, the year 2000, something like that. And I had the fortunate situation of meeting up with Seth Putnam. And he was introduced to me by the leader of our fan club, Michael Pilmer. Michael Pilmer also runs and has been road manager for Devo, and he also runs a fan club. And so I really thought Seth was a very talented person. His only problem was, partaking in too many, drugs and things like that. One time he went into a coma, and I was able to speak with him after his coma, and he says, "Hi, Thor, I'm back from my vacation." I said, "Okay." The thing is, he was outrageous. He did very interesting things, like defecating on the stage and stuff like that. I think he was banned from Canada, from touring Canada, the Anal Cunt, right? Or AC is, for those in the know. So the thing is I admired him. I admired him as an artist and a creative person. However, the other side, as a risk taker, I've just seen too many things. I've seen a guy who was like Felix Pappalardi, who produced Cream, where he and his wife were on a drug-induced nightmare evening, and his wife shot him in the neck and killed him.
Oh my God!
I've seen too many friends pass away from the madness of taking these drugs. It's not, I'm an advocate against them. I'll tell you that right now. I don't like drugs at all. I've always been health conscious. I may be a rock and roller, but I'm health conscious and always have been. So with Seth, we decided, hey, we're going to do a song together. And it turned out to be Throwing Cars at People on Coke with Thor. Now you could take it as, we're drinking Coca-Cola, so we're hyped up on the caffeine, and throwing cars at people from super strength because we're superheroes. It's just like a creative song, and I do know that when we went on tour, so many people requested that song. Yeah, it's quite amazing. It sort of has its own cult following, and that's really sad that an old friend, passed away just from the risk taking, right? Or else he'd still be around making music.
I guess I kind of came up in a more punk or extreme kind of background with metal. So hearing that as my introduction to your music, like I was able to check out some of the, I guess, less harsh sounds and more of the melodic rock and roll that Thor was putting out. So that was kind of like my first taste of your music.
Yeah, well, I've experimented in different genres of metal or rock, even, right? I've, for example, of the 39 albums, there was one album I did in 2001 called Dogs 2, which was sort of a sequel to Keep the Dogs Away, which came out in 1977, although there were numerous albums in between that time. So that being said, Dogs 2 was more like, at the time there was new metal, like Nine Inch Nails. And so I got a lot of reviews like, oh, Thor's doing Nine Inch Nails. But I'm a musician and I'm an artist and a songwriter. And so I'm going to experiment with different types of music. So I've done death metal, I've done speed metal, I've done new metal. You name it, I've tried it because I want to experiment with songwriting and the creative process.
I will say I have not heard Dogs 2, but based on your description, I really want to listen to it right now.
Yeah, you got to check it out.
Throughout your career, the terms like muscle rock and body rock have been used a lot. And while I could probably figure out from context clues what that actually means, I was curious if there was a specific definition for those kind of genres you've named and if they're actually different, if muscle rock is different from body rock.
Well, years ago in the early 70s, I formed a band. I was trying to get the Thor concept together, right? So we formed a band called Mikl Body Rock, which is my name, Michael, M-I-K-L, then Body Rock. And all the press would call it like muscle rock. These guys I had two other muscle guys on there, some other chicks, that won titles. And then behind us were the musicians playing. So we had this big show, because back in the early 70s, the bigger the show, the better. It was quite a huge show with costuming and everything, right? So that's what, like Robert Geldof, who played with the Boomtown Rats, and he of course is Sir Robert Geldof now. He put together Live Aid, one of the biggest events in history of rock and roll. In the early 70s, he was an exchange student, and he came over to Vancouver, British Columbia, and I was in the infancy of my career, and as far as getting my new bands together, etc. And so he worked for a publication called the Georgia Straight. The Georgia Straight was sort of a hip weekly. Talked about music and events and happenings, et cetera, et cetera. So he came to see a show I did at the Commodore Ballroom in Vancouver. Other bands on the bill were Twitch, which were like a Kiss band, and Z Whiz Kids. And so he was totally blown away by the show. But he came up with a connotation. This is muscle rock, and then they kind of stuck. So we initially called it Body Rock ourselves, because the band was called Body Rock, although it incorporated Thor. I still would come out as Thor, and also other gladiator type costumings, and there was females in wild costumes, and et cetera, et cetera. So it was a wild show, but but yeah, so Muscle Rock kind of stuck with it. We even have, I was involved in putting together Muscle Rock Festival over in Sweden back in 2009. So, and we still are involved with that.
Speaking of theatrics, you're well known for the bending bars, microphone stands, blowing up the hot water balloons. How did you discover that you were able to do some of these things? Did you just try it one day and you could do it, or was there a lot of practicing before doing it on stage?
No, actually, they're secrets, like they're trade secrets of how to do these things. And fortunately, I had friends who would do this and show me how to do it and share their secrets with me. One is Doug Hepburn, who at one time was the world's strongest man, and he was able to bend railroad spikes in his hands and dimes. And the other thing he could do is bend steel in his teeth. And so he showed me the technique. It's not just strength. There's a technique involved to be able to bend this hunk of steel. It's very difficult. And I've had it where 20 guys would try to bend the steel pulling on one end and the other, and they can't do it. And then I bend it with my teeth. And also, as far as blowing up and exploding hot water bottles, there was a fellow, Mr. Universe, came to Vancouver from Los Angeles in the early 70s again, and he was able to blow up and explode these lifetime guaranteed hot water bottles. And he showed me how to do it with your lung power and how to not let the air out. And but long story short, Alice Cooper, at the time, Alice Cooper was hanging himself. Gene Simmons was breathing fire. I had to have a calling card. If I was to come out on stage and be this superhuman being or a superhero type of rocker, I had to not only sing a searing brand of rock and roll, a powerful brand of rock and roll, I had to do something. I had to do theatrics and do a show. So I chose to do these strength feats that nobody else could do.
Do you think rock and metal need more theatrics in live settings? Because when I try to think of modern bands, there's only a small handful that really put shows on anymore. It feels like a lot of bands just kind of play the songs and that's really it. There's nothing to look at.
Yeah, well, I always said, you can listen to the record, but then when you come see the show, of course, I'm old school. I go back to where, my bands started in that genre, right? Of glitter rock. The bigger the show, the better. The bands that would pull, say 5 or 6 trucks of the stage set, that's the kind of world I came from. So what I'm saying is, if you come and see the show, put on a show, put on some kind of show, make it wild, make it entertaining for the crowd, because you can hear the record at home. And then when you come to the theater, you come to the stadium, put on the show, entertain the people, give them the money's worth. And that's what I always did, at risking my life to try to do that kind of stuff. I've had like concrete blocks jackhammered off my chest, breaking ribs. I've broken teeth, bending the steel in my teeth, in my mouth there, and hey, I've given my all for the audience.
Absolutely. I gotta say, I've never felt weaker than watching footage of you bending the steel in your mouth. We mentioned it at the top of the show, Rock and Roll Nightmare, and of course that's not the only movie you were a part of. Others including like Zombie Nightmare, and these movies have kind of picked up some steam in the last couple of decades, where people kind of recall them as cult classics. How did you get involved with those movies?
Well, I started in the movie business very young. In 1971, I was in a movie called Ground Star Conspiracy with Jack Papard. And then also there was another one called Christina with Barbara Parkins. So these were, as a young man, I thought I was going to really, because I admired Steve Reeves, who was Hercules, and so I kind of wanted to be like that. And my first intentions, actually, even though I was in bands, was to actually get into making movies. You know, just go down to Hollywood and hang out down there and try to build my career and try to really get heavily into the movie business. But rock and roll took over, but still my love of making movies was always there. So I was making movies all along. And then when I got to be more well known, like in the late 70s and 80s, I got offers to be in roles in movies. Like one that's called Recruits with Lolita Davidovich, who you know, she was in a movie with Paul Newman called Blaze. And anyhow, I did really well in that movie. I played a character called Thunderhead, and it won numerous awards in England. So from that movie, a friend of mine saw me, John Fasano. Well, he's passed away now, but he became a very good friend. But he wanted me to be in Zombie Nightmare because he wrote the script and he was co-directing it. And so I starred in Zombie Nightmare, and that went really well. You know, Adam West, Batman, was in there. Tia Carrere, I think it was her first screen appearance or a big movie appearance kind of thing, even though it was a B movie. So we did that movie, and from that, I got offered to produce and write. I wrote Rock and Roll Nightmare. So I wrote it. I produced it. I wrote songs for it. It was like I was like a Michael Landon, you know Michael Landon, who Little House on the Prairie. He wrote it and starred in it, and he did everything, right?
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of how that all happened with that stuff. And I'm still making movies. Like right now, I'm in Pact of Vengeance. We're filming right now. We're doing some pretty heavy filming next weekend in Vancouver. Other locations are Los Angeles and Erie, Pennsylvania, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's an incredible movie, and with a lot of action and souped up cars and martial arts. So I'm excited about that movie.
Awesome. Do you have any idea when that one might be released?
Yeah, probably in end of 2022.
Awesome.
Yeah. Since you're still making movies, at the end of Rock and Roll Nightmare, your character says, "I'll see you again, Old Scratch." Would there ever be a chance for maybe a Rock and Roll Nightmare sequel?
Well, we did a prelude, sort of a prelude sequel. I don't know if you ever saw it, called Intercessor, another Rock and Roll Nightmare, and that did pretty good for us. It's had a lot of criticism of the movie, but it did pretty good. It was meant to be the sequel, like what happened to John Triton 20 years later. But it became sort of a prequel. And many times, people say, I've been approached to do an actual sequel. And, there's a chance it still may happen. But there's a certain charm, to, I think, if we rebooted Rock and Roll Nightmare as a $60 million movie, I still say the original one would be the one that'd be the most fun to watch.
I mean, it has a lot of charm to it.
I can't deny that.
I think a lot of people appreciate it in modern times, looking back to like an 80s horror movie and just kind of having fun.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, if we had recorded like a week ago, I would say like, the pandemic seems like it's doing a little bit better. I don't know if that's the case anymore. But when this does finally come to an end, are you planning on a big tour to support this new record?
Yes, I do plan on going on tour. As soon as I can cross the border, we're going to go on a U.S. tour and then go over to Europe. But right now, I don't know what's going on down in the U.S. because it looked like everything was getting better, and now it's getting worse again. So It's kind of concerning.
We fucked this one up. I'm not sure how we did it, but we fucked it up pretty bad.
Yeah, but I am going to do some scattered shows. Like in a couple of weeks, I got a show in this area, like Maple Ridge. So it's going to be a rockin' show. But as far as an actual tour, I talked to my agent, and he says it's probably going to be not till 2022, maybe 2023. So, time goes by, but I'll still be rocking. Maybe I'll be 70, but I'll still be rocking and rolling because we live to rock.
Hell yes. It might be a bit much to expect you at the age of 70 to, bend a bar in your teeth or have somebody jackhammer stone off of your chest. Do you have any ideas for how you might, liven up the show without maybe taking unnecessary risks?
Well, actually, we've been touring quite a bit the past 10 years over in Europe. We've done festivals, trying to 20 to 30,000 people. And also, touring through United States and Canada. And our show is very theatrical with costuming and choreography, pyrotechnics. You don't really need to have the steel bars and all that anymore. We got a lot of eye candy for everybody, as well as the music, of course.
Absolutely. That's good, though. I think we would much prefer to see you on stage giving it your all without maybe doing grievous bodily injury.
Yeah, well, strength is in the music. I always felt our music was really strong, and everywhere we go, people sing along on the choruses and they join in, especially, like songs like We Live to Rock. Everybody sings on that chorus.
Absolutely. Well, in the immediate future, we don't know exactly when the pandemic and when we can see you in the States. What are you going to do next?
Oh, well, I got the movie I'm working on, right? I got the movie, and I still got to promote the record. The record is fresh. It's fresh, right? It just came out. So I got tons of work to do, right? The movie's going to take a while. Probably about 3 months, and then just keep working the record as well. We still put events on, and sometimes I'll appear on Zoom. Like in Denver, they had a big listening party down there, and I appeared virtually on Zoom, and I was able to say hello to the crowd. So we're doing all kinds of creative stuff to promote the record. And as I said, the movie is going to take up a lot of time, and it already is taking up a lot of time.
Well, I am very excited to check your new movie, and I'm very excited eventually for this pandemic to end so that hopefully we can see you on stage here at a venue near us.
All right. That would be wonderful. And watch out for the movie Pact of Vengeance, Liberator. We're gonna hopefully it'll become a TV series. Check out the video. The video's great. Lou Ferrigno's in it, and of course we'll keep on pushing Alliance. There's still a lot of singles left. We got more videos to make, and looking forward to it all.
And we are going to definitely play one of your new singles on this show. Jordan, before we close out, is there anything you'd like to ask of Mr. Thor before we let him get about with his day?
No, I just want to thank him for coming on the show and for promoting rock for so long, because someone needs to do it, and I'm glad it's you.
Hey, I appreciate that, and I just want to say hail to to you guys, and Toilets from Hell. I love the name, and I just want to say that I have a movie planned right now that maybe you could watch out for. We're hopefully going to start production next year, and the movie is called Stencho, and maybe I could use your title in some of the areas of the movie.
That would be a tremendous honor.
We would love
I know
that.
it's a weird name, but actually it's a great movie that no one has ever seen the likes of before. It's a superhero horror movie along the lines of Darkman. If you remember, I don't know if you ever
Yes,
saw Darkman.
I love Darkman.
Yeah. So it's got that kind of feel to it. But anyhow, watch out for that one. It goes into production next year.
Oh my God.
We'll start filming next year.
I am incredibly stoked on that. And I'm incredibly stoked that we got a chance to talk with you. You only get one chance, really, in your life to speak with a real god of rock. And we got it today. And you guys are lucky to be able to hear it.
You're listening to 66.6 FM. Radio TOVH. The Flush.